Good afternoon and welcome back to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. We've been coming to you live from Philadelphia at Nasdaq and Villanova University's Business School, ETF Synapse, where the focus is on ETF research, collaboration, and academia. Joining me for this segment, we have Dave LaValle. He's the U.S. head of SPDR ETF Capital Markets over at State Street Global Advisors. Thank you, as always, for joining me twice in a week, basically.
No, thanks for having me back.
So you just wrapped up your panel.
It was great,
focusing on ETF research collaboration. What were some of the highlights that came out of it?
Well, the interesting part was that we really had a broad cross-section of the industry. So we had a member of the SEC's DIRA division. We had someone from ICI. We had an investor's perspective from Sean Clark, who I know was participating in TradeTalks. And we also had kind of the issuer's perspective from a 40 Act attorney. And so a broad cross-section of the industry talking about how research is really going to impact how ETFs are able to grow in the future. And I think the reality is that we're kind of seeing an operational kind of arbitrage between ETF issuers kind of collapse and compress as a result of some great regulation and great work at the SEC. And what's going to happen is we're going to be focusing on ensuring that the ETFs are actually delivering the performance that investors are looking for when they're kind of using them as building blocks for their portfolios. And as we're focused more and more on the performance and the return profile of the ETF, I think that's going to increase the need for research and increase for the need for academics to be brought into the foray around the conversation with ETFs.
Do you think the different cross-section that you had on your panel, could they all potentially collaborate on research together, or is it still everyone's kind of in their silos?
You know, I'm not sure it's so siloed. I think it's a matter of perspective. So take a rule proposal, for an example. SEC puts a rule proposal out. 40 Act attorneys are going to probably write the comments on behalf of the issuers. You're going to have the ICI as the industry kind of focus on making sure the industry's perspective is achieved. And then you're going to have investors in the form of, asset managers ensuring that their investors' needs are met. So it's a collaboration in a little bit of a different way, as opposed to kind of sitting around the table and formalizing kind of how we all think together. It's more kind of ensuring that the different perspectives are kind of achieved, and different voices from the different segments of the industry are heard. And so it's collaboration in that way, as opposed to sitting down together and constructing something together.
Right. Do you think regulators have taken notice and want to highlight ETFs for investor concerns, because the industry's gotten so big?
Yeah.
Which 30% of what's being traded on the exchanges.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, so I would say that I think the most important thing to note, and we applaud the Commission's work for two reasons. Number one, ensuring that ETFs are represented in these conversations, and the ETF investor's voice is heard in these conversations. And in the context of research, which is why we're here at the Synapse today, looking at DIRA, which is their economic analysis team, is only a 10-year-old division, and in the past kind of 6-7 years has gone from a team of 10 to a team of over 75, right? So the rigor, the academic rigor, and the focus on data is something that is really being put forth in the policy discussion, in the regulatory initiatives of the Commission, and also a real part of the decision-making process. As we're going to see more coming out of the SEC.
It's really interesting that you bring up data, because all the conversations that we had today, whether it's academia or whether it's on the trading side, always reverts back to data. I had Shelley, who was on your panel.
Yeah.
She sat down before and she said, a big part of my research is what's the good data, what's the bad data, and not having the data fit your thesis, but really do a good job with that.
Yeah, it's being agnostic. And I think that Shelley and the team, she's one of 6 or 7 PhDs. Over at ICI.
There's a lot of PhDs in the room today.
Yeah, that's a lot of rigor around ensuring that the thesis of the academic work is accurate before the work gets done. The other thing that I would say about this is, academia and research is sometimes thought in the form of like white papers, but I think a lot of the research that has been done thus far in the ETF industry is in the form of education and investor education. It's just not so sophisticated that there are complex formulas associated with it, right? It's about getting in front of investors and saying, look, you may have read this in the media. It is at best an incomplete story. We need to complete that story and ensure that what they're reading is accurate. And so there's a concerted effort across the entire industry, starting with the regulatory bodies, all the way down through the issuers, all the way down through the asset manager to ensure that the end investor is really getting an accurate story.
Even Trade Talks, investor education, whoever thought that we'd be part of the academia process here.
This is it.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave, as always, for joining me.
Thanks,
and
Jill.
thank you for joining me throughout the day from Philadelphia. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter.